Pretty good here. It's a lonely Thursday night, but we're ready to do another live podcast.
Hopefully it works.
Yeah,
God knows that we've had our share of problems.
yeah. Hey,
But
is the comment section working too?
yeah, we'll be up and running in a few minutes
In a
soon
bit,
as
yeah.
soon as we get a comment or two.
Hmm.
So what's going on, man? It's the silly season is over.
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot of election analysis going on. So, let's kind of like dive in to see what happened and maybe make sense of how the voters came on out to make their decisions here. You want to go
Yeah.
ward by ward, or you want to start off with the mayor? I tell you one thing though that's remarkable is that for a small city like us to drag in 618 write-in votes is historical. Okay,
I got
and
to
it
tell you
doesn't matter
something.
whether it was just for Kinner or for you. Okay, I mean, um, it doesn't matter. I mean, what happened in this city 3 days ago or 2 days ago really was historical.
Listen, I got to be honest with you, right? So for the longest time, I just seen signs popping up, and I heard people talking, and I never paid attention to it because ever since I got out of politics, there's still always a bunch of people that ask me if I wanted to run again, would run again, thought about running again, and my answer's always been the same. The love of being the mayor is one thing; running for politics and getting involved in politics is a whole other thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I just kind of stayed out of everything, didn't want to be involved, didn't want to deal with nothing, and then I just had to laugh, man, because next thing I know, I'm looking at the I'm looking at the results, and 600 and some people, not counting some absentee ballots. It's going to be upwards of 700 people
Hmm.
voted either for me or Kinner. I mean, I don't know for sure who it
Hmm.
was,
Yeah,
but 700 people cast their vote in a write-in. That is historic. That is not something that's ever happened before.
hmm,
It's truly historic, and
yeah,
it's history making. You didn't have to win. You just have to
yeah.
know that 600, almost 700 people did something that's never been done before. And
Yeah,
that's go
and
to the polls
yeah,
and circle the write in and write the name in.
right. And
I'll be anxious.
the most votes were in the fifth ward alone, okay, which is upwards of 800 people. But I mean, that write-in beat the tallies in 5 other wards.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing, man.
Yeah.
I look at it's humbling,
Hmm.
but now it's also got my juices flowing. I thought to myself, maybe I should have run, and because I think it sends this message, right?
Hmm.
600, almost 700 people
Yeah.
used their brains and looked at the city and said, man, it has fallen apart in every different direction. The other 1,700 people, 350 of them conservatives, so they don't even know who Keeler is. They just vote on their conservative
They
line.
just follow that line
Right. Click,
across
click,
the
click,
street.
click,
The
click.
boom.
And the same thing with the Democrats. So he had a following of his own. They all voted on the
Yeah.
Democratic line. But I bet you there's at least 400 to 500 people that voted on that Democratic line, maybe more, truthfully,
Hmm.
that didn't even know who they're voting for. They're people
Yeah.
that haven't paid attention to the city. They're people that just kind of just go out and vote across their party lines, and they live in the river walks. They live in the Hudson Squares. They're not people familiar with a lot of the things going on, like every city that has those areas. And the guy ought to really be ashamed that 700 people casted a vote on a. And again, it could have been for Kinner for all I know. I don't
Yeah.
know who they voted for, but it's historic, no matter how you look at it. And
Yeah, it was. And
I'm humbled for the
right,
people who voted for me.
and it was done really in a very um, unofficial way. I mean, it was basically social media, Facebook.
Yeah, I don't
Okay?
think this. I mean, there's certainly this wasn't some well organized.
It wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a well
just a few
organized, and I don't want to.
grassroots people. That's all.
Yeah, I don't want to say that the wrong way. It isn't
Yeah,
like people didn't know. It just wasn't a campaign where somebody becomes a candidate. Somebody goes out there and knocks on doors for 6 months. Somebody has debates. Somebody has, flyers and money and
you don't
fundraisers
have a treasurer.
and does
You
all
don't
that
have a
stuff.
campaign manager.
Right. This is
you know.
just people went out there and voted because they're sick and tired of seeing the city going down the tubes. And
Yeah, And that's really what happened, really in the write-in. And look at kudos to Kinner for getting his signs and doing what he thought
Yeah,
was right.
yeah.
Okay, I mean he was in the battle too.
There was
Okay,
there was only one candidate that had to concede.
well that's true, and
Because
and it
was
wasn't
the
you.
candidate.
Okay, because we've been despite what Ed thinks, he thinks that you were behind everything, which you weren't. Okay, and that's why I said in the end, if someone had to made a concession, it was going to be between Keeler and Ed, who was running an official campaign.
Well,
You weren't.
Like Sean Van Sleet just said in the comments, he said,
Yeah,
it's history. It is history,
it is
and again,
history.
you don't have to win. You just have to know that history was made. It was pretty neat,
Yeah,
and
and we were, and certain amount of people. If you were one of the 618 that's currently officially, not minus all the other write-ins and everything, you were part of the history itself. You did something, even though you didn't win this election. You were part of a historic moment in the city.
yeah, it was quite the movement. And I know
Yeah,
that a lot of people have texted me and said, "Holy shit, it's hard to believe that
yeah,
that could happen," but it did
yeah,
happen. But so let's talk about the elections throughout the city. There's some that are really interesting, um, and there's some that the third ward was
third and
just
fourth ward were
George
basically
was going to win.
unopposed.
Yeah, he runs unopposed. You're right, Donnie Gibbs. Very sad for our city, man. It was a sad day to
Hmm.
see we got to go 4 more years of this nonsense, right?
Yeah,
Um, but um, I want to talk about LaQuee for a minute,
yeah.
because here's a kid, a young guy that really just showed this flair, this love, this passion for both politics and for the city that he was born and raised in, right? And
He's only 28 years old.
he's a young kid. Yeah, he's got a great career ahead of him in this political arena, right? But he goes out there and he works his ass off. I mean, he's knocking on doors, he's doing videos, he's doing everything that I did when I ran my first campaign as an
Hmm.
independent, right? I was
Yeah,
blessed enough to win. But he reminded me of myself, right? Just every night, knocking doors, knocking doors, knocking doors,
yeah,
every night talking to people, every night out there sharing his love for the city, going to council meetings, doing everything. And the other kid is a nice guy. I mean, I think Sean Higgins is a nice kid.
he's a
I
good guy.
really do. And I
Yeah.
don't have 1 ounce of problem with him, except for the fact I don't believe he deserved to win because he did absolutely nothing. And there lies the problem with party politics,
But what
right?
happens is they vote right across the top of the line.
That's right.
And in the case when it where LeQuee was, if you come across the top of the line under Democrat or whatever,
He's
then you
not
had to
there.
go to the bottom of there and find LeQuee.
I
And that's
used
what
to.
happened.
That's right. That's right. So the best candidate I think was LaQuee. I like Sean Higgins. Hopefully he'll prove me wrong. He'll be a guy that fights for the people and is a strong guy with his own opinions. But I don't
He
think he
says that.
deserved to win because
Yeah.
you got to knock on doors. You got to ask people for your vote. You got to let them know what you're going to do. You got to show up at the meetings. He did none of it. He didn't show up at a door at the last week. The Democratic Party puts out a flyer with his picture and he's got a few
Yeah.
signs that he sticks up.
Yeah.
And so I got to tell you, Brendan LaQuee he's got a great future. He should have won that race. 110 people or so had enough brains to kind of look at all of the candidates and
Yeah.
say, I want to, place these two guys side by side and see who the best candidate is. And then 100 and some just probably went
Yeah.
right down the
That's what
line.
happened.
I've
Yeah.
watched
That's
it
what
my
happened.
whole life.
Yeah. That's what
I,
happened,
I
really.
watched it my whole life. And in
Yeah.
the end, the kid who I think would have really dove in and gave it 110%, has to sit on the sidelines for 4 more years. But I'll tell you what, he'll be back. There's no doubt about it.
And I
He's a
think if he comes back, he's got to be smart enough to maybe get on that Democratic ticket to get on that top line
yeah.
because
Well,
he learned something from this.
we're going to talk about that in a minute because
Yeah,
that's not always necessary to win,
yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, and we'll prove it later on in
And we'll prove it later
this
on.
talk. Yeah,
Right. So I used to tell people when I was running, I ran as an independent, conservative, and the work and family lines, right? I
Yeah.
used to say to the people, if you want change, look down at your feet because there it is, right? Because I was down at the bottom. I didn't want them
Yeah.
looking up at the Democratic line. I
Right.
used to say, look down at your feet
Yeah.
and know that that's how we're going to make the change. And when they look down, there was my name.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's really hard to get people to vote off the party line, but it's possible and
Yeah.
it can be done. And we've
You know,
seen
it's
it.
not easy because people who were looking at the ballots when they got them, they said, "Geez, the box is so small to write in the name in here," and
Yeah.
so. So you don't have to keep it inside the whole frame. Color outside the lines for Christ's sakes, you know. But anyway, but anyway, it is a little more cumbersome when you get the ballot to do a write-in. But you know, again, as a lot of people got their ballot, there was a lot of spoiled ballots because they would go in there and they would circle this one and circle it in the same column, and the machine would reject it because you voted for the same person twice.
Well, that's
So
the whole point of saying
yeah,
that's historic because
yeah,
people just don't do it, right?
yeah,
They just don't do it. They don't get involved. People, 600, almost 700 people had to say, we're so sick and tired of watching the
yeah,
city that was on a rocket ship going up, now
yeah,
coming down. And you got a guy who's got no passion, he's got no enthusiasm, he doesn't have that Cohoes proud. He's
yeah,
just a guy filling the seat and giving himself $100,000 a year job and taking care of his daughter and going
yeah,
after all the DPW workers and cops and
yeah.
firemen and treating them like shit. So I hope those people that voted in this election realize that you gave the city 4 more years of a guy who I don't think really gives a shit about the city. Certainly doesn't care about the employees, but does care about himself.
Well, you know what? Down the road here, I'm going to explain why he won the election, but why even more so he lost this election. But I'm saving that for my next little Fifth Ward broadcast.
Well, so let's just jump in. So we talked about Brendan LeQueen and the fact that
Yeah,
he runs on a minor party line and he gets beat and he gets beat down in a an area where, and I don't want to diminish people, and I don't.
yeah,
So
yeah,
don't take this the wrong way, right?
right.
But there's people who are high paying taxpayers, people who are a little more educated, people that spend a little more time looking at politics and trying to
Hmm.
compare when they live up in a section of the city like up on the hill.
Yeah,
Highest taxpayers, right?
yeah,
Probably, the highest educated people in our city. That doesn't mean that the people on the third ward, I'm not trying to diminish them at all. I'm
yeah,
just saying a lot of them are just living their lives, and they're not paying attention and
mm,
they just go out to vote because that's what good Americans do. You go out and vote and they learn their whole life just to go across the party line. But if you're living up on the hill and you're paying $7,000, $8,000 in taxes and you see all this stuff going on, you tend to pay a little more attention, right? And so you had Tommy Dion, who wins the Democratic primary in the fifth ward
by about 20 votes.
by about 20 votes, right? In
Hmm.
that
20
area.
votes.
I said to you in 5 or 6 different conversations we had, he can't lose. He's just not going to lose up on the
He's on
hill
the top
because
of the line, right?
he's on the top of the line. He's a well-liked guy. He's a well-educated guy.
Hmm.
He's got a fantastic family.
Yep.
He speaks his piece. He's just going to be a solid council member for the fifth ward, and he's the Democratic candidate. And the most Democrats live in the fifth ward,
Yeah, 800 and almost 900 votes.
so he can't lose.
Yeah,
And Adam,
as the endorsed candidate. Yeah,
you got Adam Biggs, who runs a great race and comes in second, right? 25
yeah,
votes, 20 votes. That's not a lot. But
yeah.
he's also got the conservative line.
And working
And I
family,
think he had
working
the working
family.
families line,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, there's all kinds of talk about working families, but I will tell you more Democrats vote on the working families line. That's for a whole nother podcast. I know that whole line was started by Democrats and unions. They may
Mm,
be farther left than the middle of the road, but you know what? If a
yeah,
Democrat wants to vote for somebody, that's the line they're going to vote for if
yeah,
they can't vote for him on the Democratic line, right?
yeah. There were
Because they
842 people voted in the fifth ward here.
So so now you have Tommy, great candidate, 31,
Hmm.
shoe in. I told you can't lose. Good thing I didn't bet you like I
Endorsed
was gonna.
by the party.
Endorsed by the party, got all
Hmm.
of the players behind him, Got a
Hmm.
prominent McDonald family behind him. Jeremy's his campaign manager. Got some other people well loved up in the area
Right.
behind him.
Everything was a
And
go, go, go for Orange
long and behold, Adam Biggs wins the election by
by three
getting
votes.
by winning it by 20 votes or 25 votes in that same area. How ironic, right?
So it flipped 40 total votes.
Yeah. And the question,
Total 4, yeah.
so that conservative line helped him because about 350 people, I think, vote conservative up there.
Yeah.
Then all of those people who voted for him before, and a few people that I told you that I was talking to at the store who told me that they were changing their minds for this reason or that reason. Um, they all voted on the working families line, and this kid upsets the Democratic candidate in the most Democratic area in our city, and I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I was shocked that it happened as well. And when I was looking at the numbers, I had to double check to make sure, am I seeing this right? Okay, and sure enough, I mean, I was kind of stunned too. I thought that if I thought if Biggs was going to lose that election, he'd probably lose, and I thought it'd be close, maybe by 10 votes. Okay,
Well, you were close, just the
you know,
opposite.
yeah, and it was just the opposite. He managed to win it by 20. Okay, and it was a surprise. Okay,
And
I don't think.
I would love to be able to read the people's mind to figure out
Yeah,
why that happened.
yeah,
I mean, what made them change, right?
yeah,
Why
yeah.
why would they, it's never happened before that I know of.
Sean, when was the last time you had a non-Democrat? Although he is a Democrat when he ran in the primary, but had to run as a non-Democrat here in the general.
Me.
When's the last time was a non-Democrat on the council?
Well, I don't, it's you probably have to go all the way back to the Citizens Party, and I don't
Yeah,
know.
back in 1969
Right.
or so.
I know that I
So
won as a
as
Albany
a
County
mayor,
legislator
yeah,
as an
legislature.
independent, right?
But in
But
Cohoes on the council, we're going back maybe 60 years,
in the fifth ward,
right, since this was done.
you're talking about the most democratic voters, the most enrolled
Yes,
Democrats. So it is stunning, and you got to give kudos to Adam because the kid worked his ass off.
yes, he did.
You know what I mean? And
And the odds were all against him because, he even had Alicio on the sixth ward betting against him by funding his opponent.
well, him and
So,
that who's that whack job, Claudia.
Claudia Calendar.
Yeah, she was. Didn't she fund the?
Yeah,
What
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. She
So,
must be in love with Alicio because everything he does, she's in love with.
yeah, she is. And
She's a
well,
whack job.
I bet there was a candlelight vigil at her house 2 years ago. Okay. So,
God, but
but anyway, look at uh, Justin Alicio was I had him on my little league team when he was a boy. I mean, overall, he's a good kid. He got caught up in the swamp. I'm proud of him that he did become a council member. He did. You know what?
yeah.
Sometimes, Sean, it's that one pick here or that one pick there where it's a bad decision and it ends your career. And that's basically what happened to him. So, but anyway, I keep going about the fifth ward here because there's still more of this story. So the numbers were 842 people showed up to vote, okay, and they pretty much split it. Where Adam ended up with 240. I'm sorry, 432, and Tom with 412. 20 votes.
Yeah, it's amazing. I
Yeah.
think Adam has learned a valuable lesson. I don't think he's going to be that dodo bird for Keeler anymore. I would hope that he recognizes that his career was hanging by a hairstring,
Keeler was,
right? A piece of hair,
yeah,
as thick as a piece of hair.
yeah,
It was just hanging there like this, right?
yeah.
And
Keeler was
and
giving Tom money in March,
and I think
and so was McDonald, and so was Gell
people said to Adam, "I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're not just going to be this guy's dodo bird."
anymore.
And they gave him a chance. So
Yeah,
listen, hats off to Tommy.
yeah,
Great guy, great family, great people. Worked. I thought he had a great
he did.
campaign. They both had campaigns of class. There's no
Yep.
mudslinging and
Yep.
dirt and all that. So they should both be very proud. I always say, look at to the guy who wins or the girl who wins, congratulations, and to the guy or the girl who lost, thank you for having the courage to put your name out there and
Yeah.
run in such a hostile environment. I mean, I wasn't
Yes.
even running, and I had people like that Paul Lentz and
Yeah.
some other morons out there calling me names and
Yeah.
saying these horrible things that my kids could see on Facebook. And you have to live in an environment with a bunch of assholes, man.
Yeah.
That's
This,
these people would never put their name out there to run, but
yeah.
they like to criticize. So
Politics is ugly.
yeah, it is
You
ugly.
know, even the after effects of them sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, even the after effects. Now
You
you
know.
got, let's talk about Alicio. You had Alicio and you had Tommy Fife. That was a close race. Came right down to
Yeah.
the wire in the primary.
Now
Matter
throw
of
the
fact,
numbers at you real quick too. Okay. So
Tommy,
Tommy ended up with 249 votes,
yep.
and Alicia with 225, and it was still close.
Well, Tommy, if you remember, the night of the election, he lost, and they were all
Right.
celebrating until
Yeah.
they found out that he had about 20 absentee ballots down
Right.
at the
And
Board of Elections.
he ended up with 128 votes, and Justin with 120. So Tommy's efforts with the absentee ballots brought him over the top and made him the Democratic endorsee. So yeah,
Yeah,
go on. Yeah.
yeah. And so at the end of the day, that was right down to the wire too. And we
Hmm.
both know what killed him. That was the dividing the island and the ambulance. He
Yeah.
just unfortunately, he became the follower of the the follower of the followers.
Well,
That's
right. He was misled, really. He was
well,
misled,
here's the
and he
problem.
gobbled it on up instead of using his own head.
If you're misled, you shouldn't be in that seat. That just means you didn't do no work to do your own homework.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And now, if you're lied to, and you're trying to read something, you're not sure if you understand it well, and they lie to you, that's one thing. He's not a stupid kid, right?
No.
And he's a union guy, and he went against the
Yeah.
union firefighters. That hurt him for
Yeah.
anybody who's a union down the island. Secondly, he divides the island. That hurt him.
Yeah.
And third, the ambulance thing is going to be one of the biggest blunders to go down in the history of the city.
Hmm.
There's no way in the world that the city of Cohoes can add $1 million to a department. So basically, overnight, the fire department went from a $3 million operation to a $4 million. We don't have that kind of money. This
Yeah.
guy can spend all the money he wants and tells you he doesn't have to raise taxes and do all the shit that he's doing. But the reality is, he's pissing through the rainy day fund, the savings account, whatever you want to call it. And when that money's gone, this city is in major trouble because he has no clue what he's doing.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, or maybe I should say, fortunately, you got guys like Tommy Fife and them who understand, and Adam Biggs who now understands,
Yeah.
who maybe will talk about timeout. Let's kind of look at this ambulance before you want to go spend $5 or $10 million to lock him in until till eternity. It's just ridiculous. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. But then again, there's been a lot of stupid things going on in the city.
Yeah.
And then you have the dodo bird of all dodo birds, Billy McCarthy. He didn't have an opponent. So,
Right.
He walks in again and he's the president of the city council. And unfortunately, you get what you get. What you see
Yeah.
is what you get with him, right?
544 votes for him, and I can't imagine, how he managed to get that many votes. But
Well, I'm going to tell you something.
I don't know that he's going to get 4 votes for common council president in another 2 months.
Well, here's what I do know, man, and I'll say this loud and clear, right? I've said this 10,000 freaking times. Small cities don't vote for always the best candidate. They vote for the guy they know. Billy McCarthy's just a nice guy. He's been around a long time. He sucked out your toilet bowl when it was full of shit, and he fixed the sewers, and he dug the holes, and he did things that were really important to keep the city operating. DPW, to me, I always say it's the cog that turns the wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that outside of this stupid city where you get elected by 580 dodo birds in the 4th ward, you think that guy could ever go get a job where he was second in command of a $30 million corporation? Come on. Never.
Yeah.
If there was a business in the city that was worth 30 million and had a $30 million budget, you'd think they'd say we're going to hire Billy McCarthy to run our
100 feet
business.
away, 100 feet
Yeah,
away from the mayor's chair.
I mean, it's just
Seriously.
ridiculous. But that's people don't think of the city as a $30 million business, always funded by your dollars. Always.
Yeah.
It's funded by your dollars. And you put people in charge of it that don't even know how to balance their own checkbook. And then sometimes you got to go, how'd that happen? How'd that happen? Why we broke? Why is this? Why is that? Because you voted for the morons. That's why it happens. You voted for people who ain't qualified to hold these kind of positions, but you voted for him because you know him. Hey, Bill. He's got his little dogs walking up the street shitting on the sidewalks. Yeah, there's Billy. Yep, yep. Yeah, Billy, where's your shit bag? He forgot it the other day.
Hmm.
Um, but that's what you get with people who vote like the sheep, and it ain't
Yeah.
going to change. It's been going on. It's going on like that forever. It goes on like that in the federal, the state, the county. It's always the same. We got a president that don't know his name, and they'll vote him in tomorrow if they have an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Let's jump over to Billy Smith because I'm
That.
disappointed because
Yeah.
Billy
I mean.
Smith has balls
Hmm.
and he's not afraid to speak out. And yet somehow, some way, he gets beat by 100 freaking votes.
Yeah. It was basically a shellacking.
How does he get beat by 100 votes? I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the lowest tab he's had in years. I mean, his last one it was 150 votes, and this time he come up with only 102 votes.
It just blows my
And he
mind.
tried this time. He had signs out. He had door hangers out. You know,
I apologize. I
says he
get a
went
little
to
cold.
door to door to door. But you know
Yeah,
what? It wasn't enough.
shame, 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 shame on people who once again vote for. Look at I don't know Izo, nice kid. Hear nothing but nice things about him. I got to give him a chance. I can't just jump on the show
Yeah.
and say he's going to be a puppet, right? Got to give him a chance. Got to say, okay, let's see what he does. It doesn't take long to find out if people vote their own convictions or if they just raise their hand for, the yes, yes, yes. I never liked yes people. I wanted people to hear what I had to say. Now, of course, I wanted them to be with me. I used to fight with that Chris Briggs all the time, because
Yeah.
1 minute he's with you, 1 minute he's stabbing you in the back. You don't know which way to
Hmm.
go with these people. I used to say before I took a drink, put a rug underneath me because all the water is going to come out of my stab wounds and go all
Yeah.
over the floor. That's how it was in this
Stand
business.
in a bucket.
Yeah, you got to stand in the tub when you drink water because you'll flood your house. That's how
Hmm.
many times they stab you in the back. But the
Yeah.
reality is, you know, um, you got to give the kid a chance. I know nothing about the kid other than he is a nice kid with a good family. He's a father, I believe, right? He's got a few kids and he's got a wife and he's a school teacher. What can you say bad about him? Give him a chance. That's what I want to do with all of them. Give him a chance. We already know Billy McCarthy, right?
Yeah.
Dodo Bird. Don't matter how many chances you give him, he's going to be the same, right?
Well, I don't
Fifey,
think he voted no once in 4 years.
yeah, he did. He voted, well, not in this 4 years. He voted no against me a few times. And I used to say, I don't know how the guy is voting against me because he's reading his iPad upside down.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he knows what he's reading,
Yeah.
And then he'd say to me, we can't do this in 3 days. I go, I just negotiated 6 union contracts at the same time in the last 3 days. You can't read 4 freaking pages of a
Yeah.
simple, But he had to
Yeah.
get Johnny McDonald and all them to give him the blessing on how he could
Right, but
vote.
he'd throw $1 million contract in front of the same and his council as president with
Well,
only
because
one
that's a
hour's
different
notice.
story.
Yeah, 1 hour notice.
So listen, here's what we got, right? We got a new council with Fife. We got a new council with
Well, you got Izone, you got
Izo,
Higgins, and you got Selena, and
and
you
you
got
got
returning
Selena.
Biggs and McCarthy.
Right. So, I mean, I would tell you that it's going to be interesting, right? It's
Yeah,
going to be it's not going to be something that you're going to recognize in the first week or the second week, but it's going to take a couple weeks, a couple months, and then you're going to realize what you have. It's
yeah.
that
Well,
simple.
mhm.
It's that
So
simple.
I know that I'm getting some feedback of what's going on behind the scenes already. I'd rather not rather not say anything right now online on the podcast, okay? Because you know they're trying to coalesce, I guess is the word, okay? Because now they got to put together a new team, and I hoping that this current council allows a new council coming in to make decisions that should be theirs for their future, okay?
I
Such
just
as
hope the new council recognizes that the mayor is making terrible decisions on a lot of things and they don't just go along with them.
right,
I
and
always
that's
said that
that's why 618 votes.
the mayor of a strong form of government deserves to have his council give him all the benefit of the doubt, right?
Hmm.
But they also have to be able to say, wait a minute, let me just sit back. Can you explain this to me? Can you explain this brainstorm that you want to spend $10 million to do a 10-year contract with a freaking ambulance company? Or is it 14 million? Come
Yeah.
on, where's the brains? You got a beautiful fire department up there
Mm.
that contrary to what your flyer says, is understaffed by 8 people.
That's true.
But they could run an ambulance, or there's other ways. I listen, if I was the mayor of this city, I promise you this, I guarantee you this, I'd have a
Hmm.
new ambulance free of charge where the city's making money within 30 days. I,
Yeah.
guar- I guarantee it. And
Now police department is hemorrhaging personnel. It's now the police department of which they respond, and it's basically, well, there's nothing we can do. Okay, that's all I keep hearing from people who are making complaints. There's nothing we can do. But anyway, there's terribly understaffed, and I keep getting all kinds of calls and messages, and people say, and the word they're using, Shawn, we're hemorrhaging.
Well, you got 20 some cops left. If you believe they
Yeah,
all left just because they got better jobs, you're
yeah,
as foolish as the next person
yeah,
that believes that this guy's doing a good job.
yeah.
Fire departments treat it like shit. I wouldn't surprise if it ain't too long from now that he drops them down and they're manning. DPW, they're just constantly in walking on eggshells. But
Yeah.
you know, you got just want to say hi to Tedster 61. He's on and he's saying Killer won't listen to common freaking sense. Well, yeah, I think common sense ain't that common in Cohoes, New York. That's the problem, Tedster. Cohoes, New York seems to be a city that when it's going its best, we want to just change things, and when it's going
Mhm.
its worst, we just ignore them. So,
Well,
what
look, we
I
got the
hope.
podcast going, and we're going to still be doing here, and every week, and we want to engage more people in the city. Say, look, come on now, you're free to say what you want to say. The pressure's off. The elections are over. You got a new council. You know, guide these guys and tell them how you feel, what you want.
Yeah. Hey, listen, let me just say this real quick, right? We apologize with all the technical difficulties we have. We have a company that's out of the United States, but they have a lot of their infrastructure in other companies, or excuse me, other countries. And as you know, there's some stuff going on in other countries right now, and it's causing us to have some problems. We had a
Yeah,
few.
it's
Timmy
the way
froze
the
up a little.
signal's getting routed. Okay,
Yeah, Timmy
the
got.
internet. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim, before I jump
Well,
through this
yeah,
thing and
it's
grab you.
basically it's how the internet routes. Okay, it's like a spider web. If it can't get through one way, it takes another direction, and then that causes delays. So at one time in this podcast, I saw you freeze. You probably saw me freeze,
Yeah, it's
but
been a
we have
shitty.
no control over that.
It's been a shitty. The problem is with the bandwidth as well. It just all comes down to, you know what? There's a war going on in Israel, and some of their infrastructure's over there, and it's in other parts of the other
And we kick
countries.
through there and stuff like that. So
Yeah. So hey, we apologize. We're doing the best that we can, and if these lives don't work as we hope um, over the next several days when we do them, we'll just go back to taping our show until we can get it all squared away. But Timmy, there lies our new council and the new elected officials. It is what it is. We
mhm.
can only now watch and see. We'll hold their feet to the fire with our podcast. We'll also
Yep.
be talking about some other stuff. We had some conversations about expanding our podcast to go around the horn and talk about capital region issues, Albany, Troy, all these other things, because they affect all of our lives in the capital region. So watch for our podcast to expand. Until then, I'm jumping off, Tim, because I can't stop coughing, and it's time for me to go chill out.
Yep. Okay, and I thank you and have a good night and tune into the Fifth Ward page. We're going to put more information on out as it comes in. Thank you.
All right, take care, man.